Welcome to today's Explainer. We are jumping right in today because we're unpacking the ultimate dual path to true achievement. And that really comes down to building the disciplines for success. We're going to look at mastering both our internal mental focus and our external emotional leadership. Because, let's be honest, it is just not enough to be highly productive. And it's certainly not enough to just be well-meaning. To truly succeed, we have to build rigorous disciplines in both of these areas.
So let's dive into an incredibly relatable problem. You know the drill. You're working these grueling 60-plus hour weeks. You're constantly checking emails, basically drowning in notifications from the minute you wake up until you finally go to sleep. And yet, at the end of the week, you feel totally unfulfilled and stagnant. You haven't actually moved your real goals forward at all. So why is that happening?
Well, think about the number 40. That number represents the biological cost of our modern environment. Research shows that when we're working near our devices, we get pulled off our primary task on average every 40 seconds. Just 40 seconds. We are constantly interrupting our own thought processes before they even have a chance to take root.
And this brings us to a frankly terrifying concept called attention residue. Every single time your attention switches, even for a split second to glance at a text message, your brain physically leaves a piece of its processing power behind in that previous task. You're literally operating at a reduced mental capacity when you try to return to your real work.
The absolute key here is understanding the fundamental difference between the types of work we actually do. Answering reply-all emails, updating endless spreadsheets, or sitting in those routine meetings, that's shallow work. Pretty much anyone can learn to do that quickly. Deep work, on the other hand, is that intense, rare, uninterrupted focus that pushes your cognitive abilities to their absolute limit. Make no mistake, deep work is the only kind of work that actually moves the needle on your most important goals.
Section 1. Rewiring for deep work. Fixing the internal trap.
To really understand this internal trap, we've got to talk about neuroplasticity. We usually hear about it as this great, positive thing, how our brains can learn new skills. But here's the catch. It works on our bad habits, too. Every time we scroll, check a ping, or switch tabs, we are literally rewiring our brains to crave constant, low-level stimulation. We're building a neural shortcut for distraction. So when you finally sit down to do deep work, it feels like an exhausting battle because your brain simply hasn't trained for stillness.
Which brings us to this brilliant equation from Cal Newport's research. High-quality work equals time spent multiplied by your intensity of focus. Most of us are optimizing for the totally wrong variable. We try to work 9 or 10 hours a day, but we let our intensity drop to near zero because of all those constant distractions. By doing this, you are actively destroying your ability to produce high-quality work, no matter how many hours you chain yourself to your desk.
Section 2. The Deep Work Blueprint. Rebuilding Capacity.
Look, to reverse this biological trap, we can't just cross our fingers and rely on motivation. We need a tactical system. So here is your actionable 4-step blueprint. First, audit your current ratio of deep to shallow work, and brace yourself because you'll likely be shocked at how little deep work you actually do. Second, design a protected schedule. Third, build an environment where distraction literally isn't an option. And fourth, which is perhaps the most vital and terrifying step, embrace boredom. By committing to deliberately letting yourself be bored, like just standing in a checkout queue without desperately clawing for your phone, you actively retrain your brain to accept stillness without going into a panic.
It's really not about having superhuman willpower. It's about removing the temptation entirely. Just leave the phone in another room. Set clear, gamified metrics for 60 to 90-minute sprints. Treat those focus blocks like VIP meetings that absolutely cannot be canceled under any circumstances. By slowly training this muscle, you can actually build up to the human limit of about 4 hours of deep work a day. And honestly, that alone will completely transform your output.
But, and this is a big but, mastering your internal focus is only half the discipline of success. Simon Sinek points out a really powerful insight here. All that brilliant productivity we just talked about means absolutely nothing if it isn't directed outward. We are social animals at our core. If your deep work is entirely self-serving, you are ultimately going to hit a massive wall of emptiness.
Section 3. Finding your true why. Serving a greater purpose.
This brings us to the external discipline, shifting from solitary productivity to actually serving a greater purpose. Think about it. We so often set these arbitrary, selfish goals, getting a six-pack, winning a gold medal, or making $1 million. These finite goals often leave high performers incredibly depressed once they actually achieve them, simply because there is no next.
whereas applying your intense focus toward building a platform to give back or serving others provides an infinite continuum of motivation. The goal becomes so much larger than just you.
Section 4. The discipline of feedback. Direct communication. Now, to truly serve others, we absolutely must develop self-awareness. And today, we have an entire generation that often mistakes broadcasting for vulnerability. Crying to a camera alone in your room and posting it on TikTok with a hashtag, that's just easy broadcasting. True vulnerability is incredibly hard. It's having the discipline to look a colleague or a partner directly in the eye, have a highly uncomfortable conversation, and take direct, personal accountability. We avoid it because it's hard, but it's a necessary service to the people around us.
So how do we proactively cultivate an environment to practice this? Imagine a 360-degree peer review where you write down your specific strengths and weaknesses, and then your team adds their own specific examples directly to your face. The one rule? You can only reply with, "Thank you." You are literally asking for help and accepting uncomfortable truths from your peers as an absolute gift. Doing this completely strips away ego and rapidly accelerates your growth.
Because if we don't build that culture of truth and feedback, we risk something super dangerous called ethical fading. When leaders fail to cultivate honest feedback and begin sanctioning even little white lies, like telling an assistant to say you're not in the office when you actually are sitting right there, it creates a massive slippery slope. Over time, individuals within the organization become capable of making highly unethical choices without even realizing it, which destroys the company culture and drastically increases employee stress.
Section 5. Playing the infinite game. Long-term fulfillment.
When we merge that intense internal focus with an honest external purpose, it completely reframes massive cultural shifts. People aren't quitting their jobs just for a slightly bigger paycheck or the chance to work in their pajamas. They are actively rejecting the status quo of acceptable find. They're craving a corporate culture built on human connection, honest leadership, and a real shared cause that makes the stress actually worth it.
So how do we lead in this kind of environment? We do it by practicing the disciplines of an infinite leader. When someone brings you a problem, replace your immediate judgment with genuine curiosity. Establish a strict rule to never sanction a lie, no matter how small it might seem. Proactively cultivate the skill of having those uncomfortable conversations. And above all, tie all that intense, deep work we talked about earlier to a cause far greater than yourself or your company's bottom line.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought. We started by looking at how to fix our distracted brains to work deeper and harder, but the ultimate question is, what is all that focus actually for? I want you to take a hard look at your daily routines today. Are you just optimizing your output to check off selfish boxes, or are you building the discipline to serve a truly infinite game? Let that question guide your focus tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining me, and I challenge you to start building these disciplines for success right now.